Hello and welcome to this 8th edition of Leaders of Tomorrow, the only daily enabling platform for small businesses. Over the past 7 years, we've understood what matters the most to you, the entrepreneur. And in our 8th year, we are putting the focus on two of your most pressing concerns, that of funding and mentoring. I'm Sananda Jayaseelan. Tonight, we're bringing you to the influencer conversations, both from a similar space. First up is Coldplay. On the other side of a break, Kapiva is in focus tonight. When you're digging into your favorite desserts or your favorite ice creams, is the science behind what makes it ever come to mind? And if the answer is no, well, this conversation then is for you. I caught up with Coldplay to understand why they felt necessary to hire scientists when it comes to making their frozen desserts and ice creams, and also their outlook when it comes to this industry. Take a listen. Sudip, good having you joining us here in the show.
Thank you for having us.
And we love talking to young entrepreneurs. And you've been, not only are you young, but I understand your business also has been in existence for the past 2-3 years.
Absolutely.
But you have a lot of experience in the fact that your family has been involved, in the food business for many years.
That is correct.
So let's kick today's conversation off by talking to our viewers about, why Coldplay, why this space? What sort of growth are you expecting to see? What sort of growth have you in fact seen in the last 2 to 3 years?
So when we started this business, my co-founder Dhananjay and I got into the business knowing that the food industry itself was growing quite fast. And within the sector, the ice cream category is growing at a very rapid pace. It's growing, depending on the study that you read, anywhere between 15 to 20% CAGR. And the population in general and the consumer base is moving away from more traditional sort of after food desserts towards ice cream. India currently is consuming only 400 ml per capita ice cream per year, whereas the rest of the world, I mean, even China, for example, is at 3 liters. The United States is, of course, at 20 liters per year. So there's a huge scope for increase in this business in terms of growth. And that is what kind of, and of course, I have personal love of ice cream. We love the product that we make. And that is what sort of directed us towards taking this call.
So 15 to 20%, is that
that's the industry growth. We are growing at about 100%. So we have been doubling every year since we started.
But where is this growth coming from is what I'm trying to understand. Is eating ice creams and going out and ordering ice creams, etc., is that an urban phenomenon? What sort of growth do you expect to see in in non-urban markets?
This is pan-India. What is it has an exponential correlation with disposable income. So if disposable income goes up by 10%, the amount of money that's spent on ice cream will go up by more than that, because a lot of people are coming into the market for the first time. What is happening in urban India is there's a move away from low-value ice creams towards the more premium and luxury part of ice cream, which is where we are placed. So right now, the key market catchment place for us would be the Tier 1 and some Tier 2 cities.
So when you say premium ice creams, are you able to charge the same pricing then for your products, no matter in what market you're in?
Well, again, as I said, it depends on where the market is for premium luxury ice creams. If you go to Tier 3 and 4, they are sort of experiencing ice creams for the first time. So they're looking for more price or value-based products. Whereas markets that have already had ice cream are now moving up the value chain. So depending on, in a Bombay, you can really get the price that you want. Same would be for other Tier 1 cities like New Delhi or Bangalore and so on. Because the market isn't just value conscious in the sense of pricing, but value conscious in they're ready to pay when they get the adequate quality for it.
Fair enough. So if you can use this interview and if we can use this next answer to really give some specific insights on this market for our viewers, whether more and more consumers, and I'm talking pan-India, are perhaps moving towards healthier options, even when it comes to ice creams, whether, like you're saying, people are open to paying premium pricing now for ice creams, etc. 1 or 2 things that perhaps you want to use this interview to talk to them about.
Well, as you know, my business is split between our retail business as well as our institutional business. So I'll tell you something that is really changing with regards to both. Not just health in the sense of calories and fat content. The consumer, or the customer as it may be, is becoming more and more conscious with regards to compliances, with regards to whether a product has been made as per the correct standards, with regards to whether synthetic colors are being used or flavors and so on. And that consciousness is really helping people like us. I'm a trained food technologist, and we have a big team of other food technologists, chemical engineers, microbiologists. So we are really able to add value when the consumer cares about that value addition in terms of making a product that's truly clean and is for high quality.
Okay. We very often talk to players like yourself who are in the food industry to talk about the fact that this is a very, fragmented industry, and in this fragmented industry, maybe people are veering towards perhaps unbranded products which are cheaper. As someone who's been in this industry for as long as you have, if you are to use this interview to talk to someone watching this interview to say that it doesn't matter if you are looking at a branded product, it has worked in your case, and if you're looking at even premium products, which again has worked in your case, this is what you should keep in mind.
Absolutely. In fact, this is something I tell all my friends and families, that while there's no guarantee, at least with a branded product, they have something to lose if they do something wrong, because they are going to try as hard as possible to protect their brand. So in that case, what happens is we follow many laws and regulations that an unbranded product may or may not do so. And therefore, I would say that really look at the label of the product that you're consuming, ask questions, become as aware as possible. This is true not only for ice cream, but across the food industry. And the consumer must hold the industry to high standards, and the industry must be able to deliver on it.
Okay. Do you think enough of that is happening?
I think we're moving in the right direction. India as an overall market has a long way to go. Of course, in foreign markets, it's far more developed in terms of the laws are far more in place. Industry compliance is much higher. Consumer awareness is much higher. But if you compare our market where it was 10 years ago and where it is today, and where I foresee it going in the next 10 years, I think we're on the right path. But there's a long way to go, of course.
Okay. I want to talk specifically about some of your products, including, I understand, Stick Shack. Did I get that right?
That is correct,
Yeah, if you can talk to us about that.
Well, Stick Shack is a sub-brand of Coldplay, which we have just launched. When we were planning Coldplay, it was planned as a parlor model. What we are finding nowadays is that there's a huge demand for sort of pop-up models at supermarkets and restaurants and things like that. Stick Shack was created to serve that market. We're expecting about 20 to 25 of these to come up within the next 12 months within Mumbai and Pune, and then to take the brand across the country. Okay.
While we've been talking about the potential that you really see in the market, I also want to very briefly touch upon the kind of challenges that we're seeing. And funding, I assume, wouldn't have been a challenge for yourself.
Funding is always a challenge, whether it's from friends or family or whoever it is. But so far we have...
So you're entirely bootstrapped right now?
Yes, yes. We have stayed off professional funding. We plan to do so in about 2020 or 2021. The idea being we wanted to create a strong structure and an edifice which would be capable of utilizing institutional funding in the most effective manner possible. So currently our company is getting things in place so that once the funding does come in, when we do apply and hope to raise it, we shall be able to make most effective use of it.
Okay, is that something that you would advise for your fellow entrepreneurs in the food space?
Most certainly. I would say that funding for the sake of funding will get you nowhere. You must remember that you should be able to utilize that money in a very effective way so that there's minimal wastage of resources, because whether it's third-party funding or your own, the money has to be utilized correctly.
Okay. Very briefly then, what other challenges perhaps that you can share some insights on that you faced in your journey?
Well, I mean, probably team building is something that everybody does face, especially when you're a small business and you're trying to attract good talent, but the resources are limited. We started off as a team of 4 people. We are now 55 strong. So that is something very important. The other thing is that a lot of entrepreneurs assume business will come naturally if you throw money at it. But I would say, get off your back and go meet people and be in the market. Today we are supplying to some of the top companies across the country, and it's only because of the relationships that we built from scratch effectively. And I would strongly say that those are challenges that you must not get disheartened if things don't work out right away, but keep pushing at them.
Okay. How does one innovate in this space?
Well, many ways. Number one would be make products, first of all. I strongly believe this applies not only to ice cream, but everywhere that you yourself love. There's no point making products which you think somebody out there might like, but you're not too convinced about yourself.
Sure.
Keeping that in mind, what we do right now is we work very closely with our vendors and our buyers for technology and so on. And we have an in-house R&D team and a QC team, which I personally head, which works very strongly to innovate products at a very strong and fast turnaround time.
Okay. And wish you all the best then.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your time here, Sudip.
Thank you.
We'll slip into a short break on that note. On the other side, our second influencer is Kapiva. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and our second influencer conversation tonight is with Kapiva. As more and more people, particularly young urban India, is moving towards clean, healthy eating, I spoke with Kapiva to understand how they're marrying modern interests and modern concepts with Ayurveda, and to understand what really the addressable market is and his advice for someone looking in this space. Take a listen. Thanks for taking the time to come down to our studios to really talk about the entire, healthcare herbal markets when it comes to food products. Let's start by talking about Kapiva and what you want our viewers to really know about it.
Sure. So we started Kapiva in its current avatar about 2.5 years ago. And to be honest, it was a very personal thing for me. I've kind of grown up with Ayurveda. It's been in my blood. And I'm the third generation in an Ayurvedic family business. And in my house, having a shot of amla juice in the morning, or, making sure that our honey is raw and unfiltered, and having pure desi cow ghee is something which is completely normal. It's something which is an everyday thing for us. And, as I grew up, I kind of noticed that food is getting more and more processed, more and more adulterated, and people are no longer getting their nutrition from food anymore. That's why we see this whole advent of the nutraceutical market or the supplements market. Because, if somebody has a deficiency in vitamin D, vitamin C, whatever it is, but those minerals and vitamins are supposed to come to you from your food, right? Not from supplements. And what is happening today is that, as time is going by and we're trying to increase food supply and we are maximizing everything for quantity, no longer quality, So what I really wanted to do was give India access to high quality, highly nutritious food, at as reasonable a price as possible. So this basic sort of thought process that we had was that, I had access to these supply chains, be it for milk or honey or amla or neem, where, I could get very high quality products at pretty reasonable rates in a scalable manner. So that's where the idea of Kapiva kind of came from.
Okay. I understand, and this is, I'm looking at a Nielsen India report that the size of the market is about 45,000 crores. But we're talking of Ayurveda and herbal products.
Correct.
Are these all, consumption products like yours? What is the addressable market for you is what I'm trying to understand.
Sure. So we look at it a little differently. Right? Ayurveda in particular looked at it in a very medicinal way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, what people miss about Ayurveda today is that 80% of Ayurveda is actually how to live a healthy lifestyle, eat healthy, and not fall sick. Right? Instead of once you fall sick, you take Ayurvedic medicine to get better. The addressable market for us is the Indian food market, which is $350 billion. If you look at the functional food slice of that, that is pegged anywhere between 1 to 2% of that market today, but growing very fast.
How just give some insights on this market to our viewers. Where is that growth coming from? Who is the TG someone like yourself is typically talking to?
So the typical TG we look at is between the ages of about 30 to 45. I think, in India today, like in most of the rest of the world, people are feeling the stresses of not only long working hours, tough jobs, but also pollution, long commutes, lack of exercise, lack of good quality, healthy food, Our addressable sort of demographic is typically around 30 to 45. Typically working men and women, right? Our products are very difficult to obtain. If I give you a small example, all of our honey, for example, right, is taken from dense forests only. So we don't buy from apiaries, we don't farm honey or anything. We actually go to the forest at a single given time, we can only harvest 1/3 of the honeycomb because we need to let it replenish.
Okay.
If you take the whole thing, it won't be there next year, right? So it's a very long, arduous process to kind of make sure you to go and get it in the first place, and it's in very limited quantities. You know, I can't. If tomorrow I want to sell 1 million tons of this honey, I can't because the amount of it is restricted. So there is a slight sort of premiumization in terms of price. So we would find that our honey is anywhere from 1.5 to 1.8x of the base honey price. But the idea is that as we scale, how do we make this price more affordable?
Sure.
You know, how do we bring this product to as many people as possible?
Sure.
You know.
Sure.
So I would say currently SEC A and B+, but we want to go wider as we grow.
I would assume that some percentage at least of your challenges, and if you can walk someone who's watching this interview through the fact that I would assume that the lack of information, for instance, getting a commercial honey in the market, for instance, and you're saying your product, if it's 1.5 to 1.8 times more expensive, addressing that information gap to try and educate your customers as to why perhaps you're more expensive. How do you do that?
That's a very good question. And that's one of the reasons why when we started off, we were primarily selling online. So even today, almost about 60% of our sales is online. And, on Amazon, for example, we are market leaders in a lot of categories, such as juices. And the reason is that we can actually tell the story of the product online. We can actually, explain to the customer the blood, sweat, and tears that went into putting this product in a bottle for them, and why it's different, why it's better for you. So that's definitely a challenge that we face on a regular basis. We try to communicate as much as possible through the packaging, but of course it is limiting. But I think, it's a lot to do with consumer education as well. So a lot of the information we put out online and coming onto shows like these, is to actually help the customer understand what we do. There will always be, a kind of curve, because in a way we are creating a market, So there will always be a learning curve, where more and more people kind of understand the difference between what we do and what, the basic product is.
Sure.
But I think customers are getting smarter and smarter and smarter. People are realizing that their food is not, what it used to be. And people are actively looking for alternatives. So, surprisingly, we thought that we would have to spend a lot more time educating customers and finding customers. But what really shocked us is that customers are actively looking for a better version or better quality products, And customers now pick up and read the entire back of pack before they buy anything. And for a company like us, that's fantastic because we get a chance to actually tell our story. We actually get a chance to explain to the customer what it is that we do, which, from the front of the pack, you probably can't tell.
Was it a challenge perhaps to convince investors? I mean, outside of course of your personal backgrounds, of the fact that you've come from a consulting background, etc. For an investor who perhaps is looking at entering this market, says, this is a growing market, what should they keep in mind if they're approaching an investor? Who are these investors?
Sure. So, it's a combination of two things. I think even though the market is relatively small right now, it's growing very fast. We are seeing, like I said earlier, consumers are becoming more and more conscious and aware of what they're consuming. So they're actively looking for alternatives, healthy alternatives to what they take right now.
Sure.
So while it is a $6 billion market, which is, I wouldn't say small, but relatively small compared to maybe some other larger industries, but it's still growing at one of the fastest growing sort of areas in India today. So I think investors also are actively looking for investments in this space. I think end of the day, what matters is what you do as a company and as an entrepreneur. And investors see that. If we've been growing year on year. I think last year we grew almost 350% as a company.
You're speaking of products. I just very quickly want to talk about R&D and innovation for a startup like yourself. How do you find that balance between the need to innovate and the cost of innovation?
There's two kinds of innovation that we see in our industry. One is obviously innovation in the product itself, which is that how do we kind of create the ideal product which balances price for customer yet quality. And I think a lot of that comes from a combination of the experience that we have in Bednath. We use the Bednath R&D team very effectively, but we also work with young food technologists and young people who are looking to revolutionize this market.
Sure.
I think the other large innovation, which people don't realize, is actually supply chain. So I think that supply chain building out, a lot of innovation is required in order to make it scalable. there's a lot of great product out there, but doesn't exist in a sort of unified, large scale. So to create that scale, to bring hundreds of small farmers, so for example, for honey, we actually work with some tribals to actually who go and collect the honey. We have a tie-up with them and we add them to the supply chain. And there's 50 different people like this who come together to create one simple supply chain for a product, right?
Sure. My last question then is, since we're talking about product innovation, what next for you? Anything exciting that you're working on you can share with us?
Sure. So there's a couple of different things we're working on actually. I think one very interesting sort of area where we are seeing where Ayurveda has a lot to say and not a lot of people are doing a lot is actually breakfast. It's a really important meal.
Yeah.
We find that a lot of the breakfast that you get out there is not really the healthiest, right? We are very, very much an Indian company and we have a very, very, very much strong faith in Indian traditions and bringing the traditional Indian breakfast, which I believe is one of the healthiest breakfasts out there, in a box with no preservatives, no additives.
So what are we talking about?
So we're working with things like ragi, a lot of ancient grains, how to incorporate that, as opposed to using corn or maida or things like that. We're also looking at, adding things like different Indian spices for flavor. How do we get the best of India? Different spices, different foods, and create something which is not only very healthy, but tasty at the same time.
Sure.
So product development for us is a long process.
Okay.
So it's going to be a few months, but we're very excited about this next launch.
All the best for that.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your time today. All right, completely out of time then on this episode of Leaders of Tomorrow. If you have any feedback for us, our contact details coming up in just a moment. Do get in touch. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.